So, good evening from India, and also on behalf of Academy of Orthopedic Manual Physical Therapists. It's me, Professor Senthil P. Kumar, who is going to take the interactive webinar now, right here in the same group, the Physiotherapy Facebook group. I begin by thanking the admins of this group for providing such a public platform to share and exchange information. I have been seeing that there are a lot of promotions that are going on. People promote products, people promote courses, okay? But I thought I will promote the profession, I will promote the knowledge. So I have come here to take a webinar on myofascial release and also fasciomuscular release techniques. Of course, these techniques are also part of the certification course, which is going to begin in a few days time, after 3 days. And we're going to have it on 27 and 28 March 2021. And the discussion and the interaction now which will happen in this group will be the benchmark, because this is the part 2. The part 1 I took it on Zoom app, and we had some very healthy interactions with participants asking me queries, and I was able to address that sufficiently. And I always believe one thing, whether you give answers or not, okay, your ability to ask questions should never stop. And questioning actually shows that the willingness to improve the existing knowledge, okay. Questioning also shows that you are checking the person's knowledge. It's fine, it actually helps me. If you guys are going to learn from the answers which I am going to give, definitely I will learn from the questions which you are asking, okay. So I'm really equally thrilled as all of you and excited, and I will start again at 9 p.m. that is in approximate 25 minutes from now. I also wish the global audience, from people outside India, from other countries, everybody to join in and keep contributing their inputs in the comments. And if I find really good input, I will definitely allow the screen sharing so that you can also come and contribute your knowledge, right? So it's always a pleasure to see all of you, and we are going to actually have the best interaction. And this is my first time that I'm doing in a group, and I chose this group because of the larger audience and also the admin's actual attitude to promote profession, the physiotherapy profession. So that is how the whole settings has been public and giving everybody the freedom of expression and everything. So it's really a great experience, and don't miss this webinar, right? So we're going to come back at 9 p.m. in another 20-24 minutes from now. Welcome you all. And those who want e-certificate, which is very, very important, please contact me on WhatsApp and register. Registration is of course free. You just have to submit your identity proof. If you are a student, submit the college, the identity card or the proof, the copy as a photo. And if you are a professional, you can submit the professional license, the identity card, or the degree, or any other qualification related to physiotherapy, okay. So don't, it should be a formal identity card with your photo, okay. And if you don't have that, you can submit any official document proof to say that you are a physiotherapist or a physiotherapy student, right? So that's how we go about it. So don't miss this event. Good luck to you all. I thought I'll come a minute ahead. It's always good to be on, as the connectivity will pick up both technically and also professionally. Waiting for the members of the physiotherapy group to also get the notification, and the huge global members of Academy of Orthopedic Manual Physical Therapists, AOMPT, who will also be joining and will be leading the discussions actually, because they know questioning is something which is very, very important as part of all the webinars and course packages conducted by the AOMPT throughout. AOMPT has been providing the continuing professional education courses not only on manual therapy but also on research methodology and other aspects of physiotherapy for the past at least 15 years. Although it was registered in the year 2010, and ever since the direct programs have been going on. And for the past 4 years, it has been online courses have also been launched, and it's been received with a great positive feedback. All the courses of the AOMPT are rated 5 out of 5 stars, and we have a global audience, and AOMPT is the leading manual therapy academy in Facebook with more than 6,466 followers, the largest ever on a Facebook page in a manual therapy society or foundation or academy or an institute. And we have this 5-star rating, 5 out of 5 star rating by participants from almost 70 countries. Excuse me. So here, this webinar is mainly focusing on the interaction, and I want to raise more and more questions so that we can improvise the clinical application of myofascial release. Although myofascial release originated from osteopathy, and it's been used by a variety of professionals including massage therapists, naturopaths, osteopaths. Of course, they are the mainstream founding profession, okay, for the MFR, and of course occupational therapists and also physical therapists. The most important part of the myofascial release being applied by a massage therapist versus a physical therapist, in my perspective, would be the pathomechanical understanding that is in depth provided in the education and in the curricula of physical therapy. That depth is not covered in any other profession. We have other methods of myofascial release, includes the soft tissue mobilization methods like instrument assisted soft tissue mobilizations, or it can be cupping, or it can be even the invasive methods of dry needling, which are getting mostly popular. But what we should not ignore is the tools that is given by God, the two hands. So physical therapists should be able to diagnose by palpation of the tensegrity, tissue texture, tissue play, and relate it with the functional impairment, and also in order to ensure that the patient is symptom free during the functional activities. So we are here into a perspective where we have to improvise the myofascial release, and this necessity led to the development of fasciomuscular release techniques. The disadvantage of the myofascial release were covered up by the fasciomuscular release, the FMR. It's a registered approach of the AOMPT, and you see here that we use active forces together with the MFR. So it literally means we have muscle activation and functional positions and functional training incorporated together with the MFR simultaneously. Okay, it's not just combining in one session, we are combining in a single technique. Okay, so that's where FMR is different from MFR. The participants who watched the part 1 of this webinar would have got a highlight of the principles of the MFR versus the principles of FMR, and they were supposed to give me the 5 differences between MFR and FMRs to get the certified, okay, get themselves certified. Of course, it was also a free e-certificate webinar. Today's webinar is clinical application, so I want the participants who are watching now to ask me the questions, ask comments, and as you are putting the comments, I'll answer them. Okay, and you are supposed to submit the comment screenshot to me on my WhatsApp, then you receive the e-certificate. Okay, provided you have to register that you are a physical therapist, either a professional or a student, so you need to provide your identity proof. Okay, so that's it, and you are going to get certified. This free 1 hour certification from the AOMPT. So as we just wait for the questions to start on now, okay, I am reminding you that there is a certification course exclusively provided for 2 days and 25 credit hours from the AOMPT on 27 and 28 March 2021. So I am trying to raise the awareness of what is this functional or the fasciomuscular releases, and also how to improvise the myofascial release, the MFR itself. Okay, I have discussed about the types of MFR, the indications, contraindications, the history, development and its principles in the part 1 of the webinar. And part 1 webinar also included the fasciomuscular release techniques, how we are incorporating the motor control retraining, stabilizers activation during the MFR, and then the mobilizers activation in terms of isometric, then concentric and then eccentric, depending upon the dysfunction along a problem based approach rather than a syndrome based approach. So that was covered in the part 1. So as we wait for questions from the participants here, we have some senior members of the AOMPT who joined us just now. We also have some of our core committee members who are on the screen. Okay. So waiting for the participants and the live members to ask me questions. Dr. Kirti has given a request to come on the screen. I am just adding her. So once she comes on the screen, she can ask me directly verbally. She is a proud alumni of Maharishi Markandeshwar University, Mulana Ambala, and is a very passionate budding professional. So if you are not able to come live on the screen, please type your question as a comment here. Okay, so that's very important, so that I can read that and directly discuss. Okay. We had a slight minor interruption, so now we are resuming back due to the internet speed. So as a reminder that I am informing you that you are supposed to ask questions. If you don't ask questions, you don't get certificate and there won't be any webinar. Okay. So if you don't ask questions, it's very important that we ask questions, and the moment you ask questions, the knowledge also improves. Okay. So that should be the purpose. Certificate any person can have. I always believe that knowledge is most important than the certificate. For improving knowledge, questioning is something very important. You might have heard a lot of things about myofascial release. Either from other institutions you would have got trained, or you would have heard it as part of your curriculum, or you might have seen someone practicing in your clinical area, and then you would have watched it on YouTube, for example. Okay. There are a lot of resources that is publicly available by different people across the world. So you might have got some information on that. So if you are having contradictory, you are not able to understand that, or you don't know like how to improvise the myofascial release in a particular patient type which you are presently treating them. Okay. You can always ask it as a question. I am not able to see any comments. Is it because of the... Yeah, some participants have texted me on WhatsApp to inform me that they are unable to type because of the connectivity interruptions. So we are just holding on so that participants will be able to do that if the technical god permits. Okay. For others, you have a better internet, please start typing your questions. I'm not able to see any of the comments or questions. Yeah, when I am typing, I'm able to see it. I'm able to see my own comment. I think other participants are not yet able to type. Why there are many names actually? There are musculofacial release techniques. Okay. Fasciomuscular release techniques. Okay. There are myokinetic releases. You have many terms of release, especially of fascia, facial manipulations. The different terminologies are there. Okay. It was all started by different groups and different professionals and for different purposes. Of course, fasciomuscularis, we are releasing the muscle from the fascia rather than myofascial, which is we are releasing the fascia from the muscle. Okay. For those international audience who are watching this webinar and feeling that why am I telling fascia, it's because it is the Indian pronunciation, the Eastern pronunciation, of course, whereas in the Western world it's pronounced as fascia. Okay, right? Oh yes, I think we are having a technical trouble. Okay, we are not able to reconnect. I think whoever gets the first question correctly here should get a huge discount in the upcoming certification course as a reward for an achievement of sort. Okay. In spite of the slow internet, that they were able to type in a question and the question came on the screen. Okay. So I am also trying my level best. I do not know. All the days the connectivity was good. It's just surprising. Hopefully now the internet should be fine. Are you able to put in your comments? We are waiting for more than 15 minutes. Although I spoke for some few minutes, I am also eager to see. As eagerly as you are to ask the questions, I am also eager to see those questions. Okay. We're still waiting for the first question, the opening stroke. Okay. There are many of the manual therapy techniques in AOMPT which are provided as online courses through videos. Okay. And these videos are lifetime access enabled and you can watch it at your leisure, and all are workshop or certification course videos. So and you get e-certificates together with this online course. So it's really very convenient, and Yes, pleasure to have first comment from Dr. Bhaskar Reddy sir. Okay. I think if sir is able to comment, I think people can comment your questions. Okay. And not only the myofascial release, maybe muscle energy techniques, maybe mobilizations, manipulations, osteopathy. You have variety of courses which are provided by the AOMPT. Just relocating my camera, my phone, so that the internet may be better. Yes sir, Dr. Bhaskar sir. Yes, that's what the participants are also texting me on WhatsApp. The video is getting stuck, words are getting skipped. Okay. Thanks for telling that, because you are able to type it and I am able to read your comment, so I am very happy. Okay. Otherwise I see people watching and there is no comment. Okay. Yeah, you are able to put 3 comments. So Dr. Bhaskar sir is able to put the 3 comments. I think sir is such a dynamic personality that he gets the green signal wherever he goes. He is such a person who is not only just finds the way, he makes his own way. Okay. As another core resource person, okay, sir also conducts courses on taping, courses on ICU care, okay, cardiopulmonary and musculoskeletal manual therapy. So it's really a pleasure to have sir participating in the discussion amongst us. And sir is also holding many of the programs of training certification courses through Physio Foundation of India, located at Hyderabad. The events are held all around the world. Yes, Deepujal Bora, the first question. Is there any evidence of treating patient with foot inversion through MFR? Remember, foot inversion is not a condition. Okay, it's just a movement. If you are talking about inversion ankle sprains, okay, that is lateral ankle sprains. So can we treat that with the MFR? Remember that any kind of a position or a dysfunction or a movement, if you want to treat with MFR, in the situation of inversion, that means there are 2 possibilities. One is the fascia restriction, which is limiting the inversion, that is the lateral fascia of the leg. It's distally not gliding, so inversion is restricted. Or the medial fascia of the leg, which is not proximally gliding. So these are the 2 situations. And next is with respect to muscles. That means the invertors, tibialis anterior and posterior, might be shortened, or the aortas, the peronei, might have got lengthened. Okay. So either the muscle dysfunction has led to the fascia dysfunction later, or the fascia dysfunction adhesion has led to the muscles dysfunction later. Okay. So if you find muscle is the primary dysfunction, then definitely you should use fasciomuscular release techniques. And if you want fascia is the first culprit, adhesion was there first, that is for example post-operative cases, or is it after shin splints or compartment syndromes, or people who have the delayed onset soreness, okay, poor metabolism, poor water intake, you are expecting a fascia to be in adhesion. Okay. Sedentary lifestyle, of course, single position. They are used to keeping the leg in one single position, and that also creates fascia adhesions. Combination of factors. Okay. And surgical and post-operative scar, definitely the adhesion will be there in the fascia. Okay. Aging, collagen fiber changes, maybe the elasticity of the fascia. Actually, it's non-elastic, but the fiber conversion will make more into cross-linking of the fibers, collagen, making it to be getting crumbled. Okay, so that is like an adhesion. Okay, fascia. So when you are releasing that, definitely you can release it to multiple methods. The question is, whenever you talk about evidence, remember that it should be specific. That means you are talking about tibialis anterior and posterior shortening dysfunction. You have to mention that. Okay? That efficacy of myofascial release for invertars dysfunction. Okay? In that shortening dysfunction. Okay, like that. It should be a specific topic. Then only the evidence we can consider. If you see the research evidence what is existing, it's all non-specific. They always use the term like lateral ankle sprains. So whether the subject is having invertars being overactive, the muscle, or the evertars being lengthened, both of them can have trigger points. And if muscles are not having trigger points, still you can treat the fascia. Ligament itself is a fascia only. So you can do the myofascial release for ligament sprains also. So capsule sprains also. If the lateral ankle sprains or foot inversion sprains involve the distal tibiofibular joint syndesmosis injuries, that also could be treated. So because of this non-specific nature which we choose in research, and the criteria, the patient inclusion and exclusion criteria, the subject sampling, every type of research will choose similar criteria between the subjects. Okay? Which is clinically not possible at all. In clinically we treat the difference between subjects. In research we address the similarity between the subjects. Okay, so that's the contrary there. So you cannot tell that evidence. Okay, the question is. And when you're talking about high quality evidence versus low quality evidence, expert opinion is level 5 evidence. Okay. Yes sir, Dr. Bhaskar sir. You cannot stretch fascia. Yes sir, absolutely right. Clinical practice, IASTM taping, dry needling got results. Even I have video myofascia about that. Evidence say you cannot stretch fascia. I think sir is trying to say that IASTM taping, dry needling got results. You got results in terms of improvement in movements. Okay? You got results in terms of the change in the strength or in the functional endurance. Okay? The subject functionally improved. You did not measure the length of the fascia by diagnostic ultrasound, the real-time diagnostic ultrasound. Okay? With some landmarks on the fascia, there are some markers on the fascia, you kept it, and then the length you measured. You gave IASTM, or you have given dry needling, or you have given taping. And after that we found that in real-time ultrasound, that distance between these markers is increased. Okay? So that is when you can say actually you are lengthening the fascia. Okay? Stretching the fascia. What actually we are doing with the fascia is like a blanket. Okay? It's like a sheet. So if you are pulling the fascia from here, it goes there. If you are pulling the fascia from here, it comes here. Okay? If the fascia is like this, it's crumbled. Okay? It's not tight. Okay? Or it can be folded. Okay? Fascial fold will come, and after that adhesion will come. Okay? Fascia itself, friction, injury, and then adhesion will come. Okay? So that adhesion is restricting the movements. You have released it, movement will improve. But the fascial length is not changing. Okay? Because it's too rigid a connective tissue that it cannot be lengthened. It cannot be stretched. If in case you are able to stretch across population, you will not be able to demonstrate that, because unless it's a connective tissue disorder where the collagen conversion has happened and the fascia has become elastic. Okay? That is like very rare. Okay? Absolutely, it's out of context. We can never even imagine that. Even in patients with hypermobility syndrome, you can't stretch the fascia. Okay? We are actually stretching the related tissues, and we are moving the fascia. We are enabling the gliding of the fascia. Okay? How to differentiate between local myalgia and myofascial pain in facial muscles? Question from Ritu ma'am. Um, it's only about the history of the terminology. Earlier it used to be called as myalgia, pain arising from muscles. Okay, and later we found that although pain can be arising from muscles, the muscles functioning can be interrupted by the fascia, because epimysium, perimysium, endomysium, tendon, the periosteum, everything is fascia. Okay. So then the terminology was changed into myofascial pain. Okay. You don't have to differentiate between myofascial pain and myalgia. You just have to know that one is a older term and the other one is a much later term in his evolution. Okay. And don't go into structural focus of differentiating between muscle pain versus pain from myofascial. Okay. You can't separate myo and fascia. Okay. In the source of symptoms. Okay. If pain is coming in the muscles, it will come in the muscle only. It will not come from fascia, because fascia is not innervated with free nerve endings. So fascia can't produce pain itself. If there is a scar, if it is cut, the fascia is cut, that means it's because of the adhesion with the other tissues, and the other tissues are innervated with free nerve endings, so the pain comes. Okay. So don't think that fascialgia will come. Never. Okay. Fascia only goes for dysfunction. Fascia will not be causing pain. Fascia is not vascular also. There is no rich blood supply at all to the fascia. That is the reason why facial injuries takes a longer time to heal. Okay. If it has to come, it has to go from the collaterals, which is through the attachment from muscles only, because muscles are most vascular. Okay. So you don't have to differentiate myalgia and myofascial pain at all, be it any region of the body or it is the facial muscles. Okay. Condition wise, remember that although this terminology is there and you have asked a question, if you have a facial pain, you have a temporomandibular joint myofascial pain syndrome, that is masseter trigger points. Okay. Myofascial pain, we'll tell it as myofascial pain, we will not tell it as a myalgia. If we are using the term myalgia, it means that we are outdated. Okay. Hope I could clear that aspect. Some therapists do use both the terms, okay, telling that it's not myofascial pain, it is myalgia. Okay. Beware of such kind of therapists. Okay. They are confident with the fake knowledge. Okay. Okay. Should we wait for further questions? If the admins of the physiotherapy group is watching, I am really very indebted to their efforts to create such a huge group and their passion to enable public settings so that people can share their knowledge and information across the globe. Such a noble initiative. I really congratulate the admins for their work, and AOMPT is definitely ready to support, promote such positivity in any dimension. Okay. In fact, I am just about to initiate an actual discussion with the admins so that I can hold such free webinars regularly in this physiotherapy group, probably every weekend, the Saturday night. So we can see that the weekend webinars will be making you strengthened. Okay. Dr. Kirti is asking, do fascia cause cellulites? See, remember, fascia do not cause anything. Okay. Fascia actually becomes something. Okay. The pressure inside the facial compartments if the pressure increases, it creates compartmental syndrome. It's actually not, the fascia is not creating. Fascia is just a blanket. It's like a polythene cover. You blow the cover, it will increase, try to increase as much as it can. after some time it bursts. Okay. Same way the cover will get folded, crumbled, sticky. Okay. Everywhere it will happen. Cellulite is, you have a deposition of this kind of proteins, okay, between the facial layers, okay, or it could be the fat, okay, the improperly mobilized fat, okay, so that is getting deposited. So it is a part of a connective tissue metabolism, okay, so that's something which is not a mechanical disorder, and these depositions may be cosmetically may be concerning for the patients. Some of them tell that for cellulites we can do the mobilizations, okay, you can do IASTM for cellulites deposition and other things. I don't believe that, okay. Get the metabolism first set right, okay. If as long as the metabolic imbalance is there, whatever you mobilize, it will go from one place to another place only, it will not get absorbed, okay. Surgery is never a solution for anything, okay, unless it is a malignancy or it is a abscess which is to be drained, okay, or severe structural damage so that we have to replace that, joint replacements and other things. Otherwise the surgery is not a solution at all, because you cut it, you operate it, even after that you will again get adhesions, again accumulation, further impending complications and consequences, okay. So don't think that fascia is causing the cellulite. It is like telling that door or the room is preventing you from being independent, okay. So the walls of the room, that is the fascia, okay. It is providing the privacy, it's protecting you, okay, it's allowing you to keep all your things in different areas so that you can utilize your space. It's the wall of the room is the fascia, okay. You can't tell that the walls are actually preventing me from going out, okay, or stating that because the walls are there I don't have space to keep my table and my chair. You have to keep the table and chair within the space that is permitted by the walls, okay. So all the tissues have to function within the space that is provided by the fascia. Don't blame the walls. Think about how you can rearrange your things so that you have adequate space to move around, okay. Balance between luxury and affordability, okay, getting what to do with what things to be there in the house, okay. Don't blame the walls, okay. Dr. Abhishek is another core resource person, okay. He is also an expert PNF instructor and also neuro rehab. Also he takes on manual therapy. So he has his own channel, YouTube channel, where he is regularly sharing information. I think it's Physio Classroom, okay. Huge subscribers and real visionary, inspiring physio. Nice to have you, sir, amongst us. The next question from Dr. Keshav. Which was the first culprit of dysfunction in musculoskeletal tissue and further affecting to other structures? And plan the treatment accordingly to approach the main culprit first. The answer which nobody would have given you maybe, or maybe because you are not enrolling now recently into AOMPT's courses. Remember that there was a differentiation based movement testing, differentiation based physical examination, full package of the AOMPT, how we differentiate various tissues and which tissue is more involved than the other, okay. In a sequence of physical examination, by altering that sequence, how we can find that. In a nutshell, I would say articular system is identified by compression and distraction, where compression checks the intra-articular and the distraction checks the extra-articular capsules and ligaments, okay. And myofascial system is checked by the myofascial plane, which you are assessing for myofascial release, for example, or the muscles contractions, okay. You can lengthen, you can stretch the muscle to see, but more specifically it is the mobility of the fascia and the contractility of the muscle. And the third is the neural impairments, where you diagnose by neurophysiological assessments of sensory, motor, reflex testing, and also electrophysiological lab testing, or you are checking with neuromechanical or neurodynamics or the extended program of neuromanual therapy of the AOMPT, where you palpate the nerves or you utilize the sequencing of joint movements to identify the nerves. If a person has joint impairment to be primary and secondarily myofascial and afterwards it's neural, okay, or it can be neural first, then myofascial, then articular. This was discussed as ortho-myo-neuro-manual therapy, AM&MT package of the AOMPT. You take those 20 videos, 10 videos are on regional assessments and 10 videos are on regional treatments. You will find extensive information on how to identify which is the first. I am telling you a specific example. If a patient tells that his knee pain started after prolonged standing, okay, you are likely to assume that it is articular. But if this knee pain, the patient tells that it is like a pricking pain and more deeper, you will suspect an intra-articular. Whereas if the patient tells it's superficial and it is more of a medial side pain, and that pain which comes after, for example, not with the early morning stiffness, okay, early morning stiffness and then easing with movements will tell about synovial fluid, that is intra-articular, okay. If it is periarticular capsular ligament laxity, it is endurance related. So that means previous day the subject was walking for a long time or stair climbing, any of the functional activities, and because of which the next day standing has become painful in the medial side. So that means you should think of it's more of an endurance related issue, okay. So it might load the capsule ligaments or the meniscus, okay. So remember that the situation actually, the other patient tells that had a history of fall and immediately there was a blow on the knee and after that having knee pain. You should suspect that it's a post-traumatic synovitis, so that is also articular. Okay, so everything has a specific mechanism of injury. Now the patient will be having trigger points in rectus femoris. They will have medial joint line tenderness. Okay, they might also have saphenous nerve positive neurodynamics. But in the history of progression, you will know that first was trauma, so it should have been post-traumatic synovitis, which should have aggravated into osteoarthritis through articular cartilage. Presentation of pain, prolonged standing, pricking, or early morning stiffness was there, so it should be intra-articular. The thigh pain which comes after walking, that is the trigger points, which is getting activated only on walking. That started recently, only 3 weeks, but early morning stiffness is there for 3 months. You know that articular is primary and secondary is myofascial. Okay, and the numbness is there just for last 2 days, or occasionally on cross-leg sitting or full kneel sitting and then getting up, or prolonged sitting and then getting up, you are getting numbness in the leg, which is now recently started. So the history of progression itself will tell which is primary, which is secondary, tertiary. Of course, physical examination is also there. So you should get into the videos and get a better highlight on that. Okay? But remember, if A is causing B and B is causing C, symptom comes from C most of the time, because body what is called as the homeostasis. Okay, body has that nature to adjust. So when there is problem, that problem alone will not be getting symptomatic. It will initiate some changes in the adjacent regions. That's why regional interdependence is important, and the structural interdependence also is important. So one structure is at fault, another can try to compensate. It may be one muscle is in dysfunction, another muscle is going for a overload. Okay. So, but that overload one or the compensating one can be lesser compensating, it's not adequate and it will become symptomatic, or the compensating one becomes too much, it is working too much in order to address the initial dysfunction, so this is becoming symptomatic because of overcompensation. Okay, so the muscles can become overactive also, can be spasm, or it can be underactive also as a compensation because another dysfunction of another muscle, or it is nerve or articular. So that's why we have to examine all of them and see that which is more involved and which one when you are treating the other one is going off. Okay, and modify the forces of compression distraction, modify the forces of myofascial play and contraction of the muscle, modify the positions of neurodynamics in different sequences so that you can identify whether it is ortho, myo or neuro, which is first and which is second, which is third, and then you can treat them in the reverse order. Okay. Is acupressure more effective than rehabilitation physiotherapy treatment for foot drop? I don't think acupressure comes under myofascial release, okay, or under the fasciomuscular release. Okay. The whole mechanism and the philosophy behind acupressure being traditional Chinese medicine, the meridians and things. So remember that, deviating away from the topic actually. Okay. And any treatment could be beneficial for any situation. Okay. Be alerted that we are treating the patient. If the patient believes that acupressure will cure me, you give the acupressure, their activation will be better, so the recovery for foot drop may be better. Okay. I don't know how you are comparing this with physiotherapy treatment or rehabilitation in general. It's a very, very broad profession which you are comparing. Acupressure is just a technique. Okay. Physiotherapy is a professional approach. Okay. You can't say that one single technique can be more effective than the whole professional domain of practice itself. Okay. I will not allow that to happen. You are talking to a physical therapist who is actually having strong hold on physiotherapy. Okay. And wants to ensure that you learn the physical therapy techniques the best. When you have learned the best, you will use it the best. Okay. When you have used it the best and then you don't get the recovery, you can tell techniques are not effective. Okay. If you don't learn the techniques best, that means you apply even a tensor IFT also, patient will not improve. Okay. It does not mean that IFT is not effective. You are not effective in learning that technique. Okay. Oh, definitely welcome, Dr. Abhishek. So remember that we all learn from each other. We learn how to teach. Okay. And the feedback mutually that is transferred will definitely go a long way in the higher level of learning. Okay, when instructors participate in another instructor's courses or programs. Okay. And you should get certified as instructors so that you can carry on with the work in that region where you are, and make sure that it's a global teamwork. Okay. Appreciate the words of Dr. Abhishek. Do we have any more questions here as we wait? Even Dr. Bhaskar sir, Dr. Abhishek, okay, you can also try to answer on or add on to the comments what I am describing or explaining for Deepujal's question, or you see the previous question by Keshav, for example. Okay, everything you can also add on. Okay. In fact, if you'd like to add on, you just mention that I would like to add on some points. Immediately I'll allow the live screen, okay, shared screen, so that you can come on the screen and you can present your inputs. Okay. Also eagerly waiting for the Himalayan PhysioCon. Okay, it was a great international conference which was held at HAHD, Dehradun, okay, where Dr. Abhishek is the HOD and professor there. So we are eager to see Dehradun now, as I have relocated to Bangalore, southern India. So really looking forward to visiting Dehradun during the summers, okay, the May, June. So schedule a date and fix it, and if there could be any workshop, you always hold a series of workshops using Himalayan PhysioCon is actually the Himalayan of knowledge, okay. So it's like many peaks which are there and the Himalayas are there, the same way the knowledge is also touched upon till the peak, okay. So looking forward to that event, and also holding some workshops there so that direct hands-on interactive experience we can share, okay. I know you being part of the organizing committee, it's very tough for you to sit in the sessions, but definitely I know that the student within you, as similar to the one within me, is always alive, okay. I always believe that I am the best student, next only I am the okay type of teacher, okay. So always it is a great initiative, okay. I hope I am talking on behalf of the world which participated in the Himalayan PhysioCon itself, that everyone will be eager to come and attend that event, okay. Excellent facilities and great organizing effort. Yes. Dr. Kirti's question next is, sir, do MFR or FMR is helpful in case of plantar fasciitis or heel spur syndromes? These terminologies are replaced with plantar heel pain, okay. If you see the guidelines of orthopedic section of APTA, American Physical Therapy Association, they clearly mentioned the use of plantar fascia release, okay. And then the next is the release for the gastrocnemius, okay. These both are very, very important. Stretching for gastrocnemius, no. Nowadays the self releases using foam rollers, okay, or by tools, okay. So people are releasing, and that has been shown with good evidence. Flexibility of the calf was earlier thought of as a reason for the heel pain or as an effect of the heel pain, for example, but nowadays everyone has realized that it's a myofascial adhesions. So myofascial releases go a long way in relieving the symptoms. When it comes to heel spur or the calcaneal spur, remember that it's a skeletal one. Most of the times the spur may not be the cause for symptoms. If you have a spur which is like because of osteoporosis or because of metabolic disorder of the bones, the spur became, or degeneration because of aging, for example, and the spur has become improperly grown and then it is loading directly, it might require a surgical intervention, okay. But corticosteroid injections to the spur is very poor evidence. Even in the presence of spur, releasing the plantar fascia will definitely have at least short term to medium term benefits, okay. But otherwise, that if it is vertically directed spur and it is directly getting paining, you cannot do anything with MFR. You have to think of doing something for the structural fault. But plantar fasciitis is a functional problem where patients have the running or that walking heel of phase because of poor flexibility of the plantar fascia. Although I am telling the term flexibility, remember that it's actually the mobility. Because tendo-Achilles itself continues as the plantar aponeurosis. Okay. Plantar fascia is just the aponeurosis of the tendon of gastrocnemius. Same like how palmar aponeurosis is for the palmaris longus. Okay. So remember that as a progression you need to give that intrinsic muscle strengthening, or you are trying to correct the imbalance of heel alignment. Because there is something, a factor of rear foot, midfoot and forefoot alignment that can actually load the fascia. Pes planus, for example, goes to shortening of the tissues around the fascia, whereas the pes cavus is the shortening, pes planus is the lengthening, okay, of the tissues adjacent to the fascia. I always maintain these terms. Fascia is not getting shortened or lengthened. Okay, it's only the loads, the tensile loading on the fascia will be more in pes cavus. Okay. And in a pes planus, the foot is actually flyal, and all the load is absorbed by the foot, which is by the plantar fascia itself. In pes cavus, the load, plantar fascia is very rigid, or the foot is rigid, so the force is transmitted to knee and hip. Okay. So to correct that inversion eversion imbalance, including subtalar neutral and the midfoot corrections and the forefoot corrections, skeletal is something important, because skeletal malalignments will alter the loads on the fascia. Okay. So that's why you need to correct the skeletal alignments. And that skeletal alignments, if it is caused because of muscle imbalances, as we were discussing a while earlier about tibialis anterior posterior versus peronei imbalance, definitely you have to train them. But when you are training them on a wobble board for mediolateral stability, okay, invertas, evertas, neuromuscular control, make sure that you do the plantar fascia positioning, elongation position, or in terms of the release position of the plantar fascia, or you are doing it with a foam roller simultaneously. So the idea is releasing the fascia during the re-education of the muscles or the neuromotor control. Okay. Proprioception is another factor for inversion and eversion, so that also should be trained as part of the balance training. Okay. Fasciomuscular release incorporates all this. I hope you received the videos. You can see that the techniques are given. If you are searching for evidence also, global recommendations always tell myofascial release being effective. So it's worth trying it. Okay. If any of the admins of this group is watching, can I request them to come here and comment a bit so that I will know who are the admins? Okay. People are doing such a great work, and nobody knows actually who is the admin of this group. Okay. Sometimes post by the admin, if it comes regularly. However busy you are and how much ever you are occupied, you are still ensuring that physical therapists can discuss in this platform. So I really want to congratulate you for your efforts and wish you all the best for all your future endeavors. Make sure that this platform should be utilized for the betterment of knowledge, betterment of profession, and betterment of mankind. Okay. We become better as physical therapists, we are able to provide better treatments to people, and humanity will be getting benefited at large. Okay. Social media networks are not just for entertainment, are also not for abusing, criticizing, or trolling each other. Social media should also be a platform for building up the positivity. Okay. That's the major principle how AOMPT is, active. Facebook, YouTube, or WhatsApp, website, the Instagram, or the Twitter. Okay. So it's always been a huge network of getting connected with people and growing with positivity. Are we having more questions? Those who have asked the questions, you can take a screenshot of this and send it to me on WhatsApp. Kishore Kumar, really pardon me because I cannot understand your question. You are asking a question DVD. What is DVD? DVD is contraindicated for MFR. Or is it PVD, peripheral vascular disease, you wanted to ask? Or is it DMD, Duchenne muscular dystrophy, which you wanted to ask? Please clear the question first. Remember that there will not be any contraindication for MFR except if there is injury. Okay, you want to apply MFR on a particular muscle region and the muscle is in injury, it's not yet healed, then it is contraindicated. Or the recent surgeries which will contraindicate. Infections at that region where you are applying the technique will contraindicate. Remember, okay? So, otherwise there are no major contraindications for MFR. I would say contraindications in terms of general ones which are like patient's age, children and also elderly with comorbidities, impending medical emergencies, people who are in the ICU where you don't expect their vital parameters to be stable. So think of that these are the contraindications. It may be sometimes some other contraindications are true with the patient's cognitive status, because even if the patient is sleeping, you are not going to allow the patients to sleep, but MFR is a passive technique, but still you need to know the responses. You can evaluate the responses, tissue responses by palpation, but communication is very important for history, evaluation and ongoing reassessments. So patient's cognitive status is very, very important. If they are mentally retarded, it will contraindicate the MFR. Okay. Otherwise, if you see epileptic attacks, maybe patients who are having, you might be forced to a situation of emergency when you are giving the MFR, or the patient might think that, or the patient's relative might accuse you that your MFR, because of that the patient got the epileptic attack. Okay. So just to avoid that medical legal consequences, make sure that you are keeping the physician in the loop, good communication, and with the permission of the physician and also consent of the patient, you can attempt to use with precautions. Okay. Otherwise, MFR is, I don't think in any other population it might be contraindicated as such. FMR, active forces are there, so muscles need to be activated. So if muscles are weak, you can't do the FMR. Okay? You can try to give strengthening, but not flaccid. You can't use an FMR. In flaccid stage, you can use MFR prior to facilitation techniques. Okay? To use PNF, for example, you can use the MFR before the PNF. So that the muscles will be better prepared to get activated. If you are giving weight bearing techniques for lower limb in order to facilitate the muscle tone, before the weight bearing you can think of myofascial release in the areas which are limiting the posture of weight bearing, okay, be it standing or sitting. To make sure that the functional training, okay, that is most important, the functional aspects. Although MFR is a structural treatment, you need to see that how fast you can bring it to functional recovery. Dr. Kirti is asking, how long does fascia take time to heal? First of all, I was telling you about fascia being injury that is only in surgery. Okay, and we all know that suture sites, the stitch removal, okay, 1 week or 10 days if it is uncomplicated, or it takes 3 weeks for soft tissue healing. Every soft tissue, capsule, tear, ligament tear, all of them are 3 weeks, but it is influenced by various factors. Okay, you can't say that the healing will definitely happen in 3 weeks. If the patient is again re-exposing to the provoking stimuli, the injury may be delayed. Taking anti-inflammatories, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs will delay healing. Okay, so don't think that it's the structural healing which is going to come into picture here. Okay, you are going to have the functional recovery. If you have, for example, frozen shoulder, you think that the capsule has to heal? No. Okay. It is just that with that dysfunction, how much functionally the patient can become active. Plantar fasciitis is also now increasingly being recognized as a degenerative disorder more than the inflammatory disorders. Same like lateral epicondylalgia. Okay. So don't think about healing in a degenerative situation. You don't think first of all about tissue. You think about functions. Okay. Why the injury will not be getting healed? Because of abnormal forces. The abnormal forces, why it is abnormal? Forces are not the culprit. Maybe nutrition is poor, tissue is not strong, so it is not taking the load. Or activity dosage, too much the subject is doing, so because of that the load is improper. So you have a lot of things with that. We had I hope it's the final technical interruption. Okay. Yeah, Kishore Kumar is saying that it is deep vein thrombosis. Okay. Remember that deep vein thrombosis per se does not contraindicate MFR. Okay, because your MFR is not going to influence the thrombus. But the positioning, or if you are giving exercises, self MFR, deep pressure, deep releases, that might cause. Okay. But even then, you need to know the stage of the thrombosis. Okay, if the thrombus is unstable and it can cause an embolism, okay, that you should rule out in discussion with a vascular surgeon or a phlebologist, okay, the one who studies the veins, the physicians. So once you are clear with that, you can use these techniques. So your aim should be not to disturb the thrombus if it is unstable. If it is stable, nothing, no problem. MFR will not influence much. But FMR will be contraindicated in DVT because there is active contraction there. Okay. We are asking questions which are like indications. Okay, for example, this question of MFR or MFT help in De Quervain syndrome. Of course, because there is tendinitis, inflammation. Afterward, the tendon heals with adhesions. You need to release that. Even in acute stage, when the tendon is inflamed, the muscles will be having trigger points. That's why the tendinitis has come. Okay, or because of tendinitis, the trigger points in the muscle will be there, or in the accompanying synergistic groups. So you need to release that. Okay, tendon itself is fascia. Okay, so you have to release it. De Quervain's, you are saying De Quervain syndrome. Think what is the pathology De Quervain's means? It's tenosynovitis. Okay, so you have to do that. Can we use MFR in case of muscle weakness, in case of scar formation in spinal cord? How will the scar formation in spinal cord happen? I think it's Dr. Neha. But spinal cord scar, how it will form? Can any of the experts globally who are watching this video can help me out with this question? Okay. That means spinal cord was sutured surgically. After that, you're expecting a scar there. I don't think so. Tender points will be there in any muscles. Tender point can be in ligaments, tender points can be in bursa, tender points can be in nerves, tender point can be in capsule, it can be in any of the tissues, tender points can be there. Why scar formation in spinal cord only? You have to clarify first. What is that? Okay. Muscle weakness, muscle shortening, muscle overactivity, any kind of a muscle dysfunction. FMR definitely is indicated, fasciomuscular release. Okay. If you get the videos of fasciomuscular release, you will get a better insight on even the principles. I think there is a free video available on YouTube on fasciomuscular release, which I have circulated to all the members. So if you watch that, you will know that it's useful in all these conditions. Okay. But I need to be clarified on what is the scar formation in spinal cord. Okay. Even in quadriplegic or paraplegics also, It does not mean anything. UMN, upper motor neuron or lower motor neuron, whatever is. The fact is whether there is facial adhesions. When the person is standing, when you are doing sit to stand, you are doing a kind of a wheelchair mobility, sitting and reaching out, any functional activity or balance training. You just watch the facial mobility by palpation. And if you find that there is an asymmetry in the patient right and left, in the weakness of lower limb, or the inability to use the lower limb in standing, for example, and you find the thoracolumbar fascia there contralaterally restricted during standing, you give the MFR and you see that the functional training, the patient is able to participate better. Even if it's a partial weight bearing treadmill training for a paraplegia, patient is suspended in the harness and the body weight is supported, counteracted. Walking, you are finding that the patient is dragging one of the leg. Immediately check the contralateral thoracolumbar fascia. Lower limb, of course, hamstrings, piriformis and calf. You need to check that facial restriction, but patient is usually using the orthosis for the lower limb. Okay? So it might be a knee, ankle, foot or the orthosis. Okay? Or reciprocating gait orthosis. So different orthoses which are there. So you may not be able to treat the lower limb, but still you can treat the contralateral trunk thoracolumbar fascia. So you will find a huge difference in the parameters. Patient also tells that I am able to walk for much distance without getting fatigue. Functional endurance. Definitely it will indicate even in paraplegics or quadriplegics. Okay. When you are talking about neural mobilization, you are talking about slump test or you are talking about SLR, you might think of spinal cord or post-operative scar, okay, because of laminectomy or because of spine surgeries, or maybe a malignancy in the spinal cord where they operated and they have sutured, and if there is a scar, all that will be potentially contraindicating neurodynamics, the neural mobilizations. Okay. But even then, there is a technique of sliders, okay, nerve sliders. So slump sliders may not be contraindicated at all after 3 weeks of that initial healing phase for the scar. So tension techniques may be contraindicated. That's anyway for neural. Okay, it's not for myofascial. Okay. Myofascial techniques you are not going to influence the spinal cord, so it won't be contraindicated. Positioning may be modified because subject will be feeling discomfort or you suspect worsening of the cord symptoms. Okay. Risk of injuring the cord more. So positioning can be modified, but it's not actually the technique of MFR that has to be modified. No. So I'm just giving it an extended time because of technical interruptions which were there in between. Some people might have missed. To see if we can answer one more the final question now. Many of the participants have been my familiar participants, except of course Kishore Kumar or some few who are not the AOMPT members. Those who are watching this video after this webinar, the live relay, okay, afterwards when you are watching, please don't rethink about joining AOMPT as a member. Okay, membership of AOMPT gives you global identity and also gives you a huge benefits in all the certification courses with lesser fee, and of course you should try the courses. In the Facebook page of AOMPT there are numerous free webinars which I have conducted. You can watch them. There are a lot of practical demonstration videos which I have shared on Facebook, YouTube or Instagram. So you can utilize your time productively learning from those demonstrations and interactions. But enrolling in the certification course formally gives you the training so that getting certified makes you empowered to provide better care for the patient types. Okay, so don't miss the certification programs, and I'd be really delighted to receive your registration for the upcoming certification course on myofascial and fasciomuscular release. Become the certified MFR and FMR practitioners. So contact me on this WhatsApp which is given with the description, and make the fee payment in installments. You can pay part by part, okay, so that don't financially strain yourself, and at the same time don't miss the training, the extent of knowledge that is shared, both online and offline. Okay, you can watch it live on Zoom when it is happening itself, and also watch it later as a recorded video of the sessions. Also get videos in your YouTube links, lifetime access, okay, for lifelong reference in your email. Okay, so join the certification course and experience the difference. Okay. So good luck to you all, and I really appreciate. You don't worry about this. I told about that fasciomuscular release is an active technique. You are activating the muscle. So in deep vein thrombosis, don't activate the muscles. So it's contraindicated. Okay? Don't worry about technical connectivity and things. You are a registered participant of the FMR and MFR. You are already in the group, WhatsApp group, where you can ask any discussions. Okay? So don't think you missed anything because of technical issues. Never. Technical issues can never come between a member and the academy, especially when it is AOMPT. Okay? And you have 24/7 technical support. When you are contracting the muscles, muscle contraction is contraindicated in DVT. So FMR will be contraindicated. Understood? Because FMR includes muscle contractions. Okay, so that was the last question from Dr. Kirti. It was a repetition, of course, but still she was curious to ask and clarify now. Sometimes we become very restless. If something is not clarified, we feel nothing is done. Okay? We know that we can clarify directly on WhatsApp group itself, but still we panic. Okay? It's fine. It shows that passion to completely learn something, and sometimes some gaps are there, you feel it's incomplete and you are getting restless. Okay? But make sure that the path which you have taken, you know this path is a glorified path of knowledge. So wishing all the participants the best of luck, and I thank the contribution and the positive feedback from Dr. Abhishek, Dr. Bhaskar Reddy. Okay? It's really a pleasure to having you both together as part of this discussion. Okay. See you all. Bye bye. Thanks once again to the admins of the physiotherapy Facebook group. Okay. How many ever times I tell this gratitude? I really thank God for creating such wonderful people who can promote such an open exchange of knowledge and information across such a large platform across the world in physiotherapy. Okay. So appreciate the work of the admins. Okay. I will be coming here in the physiotherapy group as frequently as I can. Okay. So good luck to you all. Stay connected.